Dark Chosen Ones. These shadow triggers unlock your 3 rarest abilities. There's a moment during the spiritual journey of every Dark Chosen One when we stop looking for light and start listening to the shadows. That moment is not romantic, it's not peaceful, it's not wrapped in the soft glow of healing crystals or the soothing hums of a meditation track. It's raw, it's violent, it feels like being ripped open from the inside by something ancient and intelligent. And yet this is the exact doorway we must walk through. Because the most rare, most powerful abilities of a Dark Chosen One are not unlocked by light. They are triggered by shadow. Now I know this might sound strange. We've been taught to avoid our darkness, to run from our wounds, to transmute pain into light as quickly as possible. But what if I told you that your deepest pain isn't something to escape, it's a coded message from your higher self? What if your darkness isn't a flaw, but a map? And what if the only way to access your rarest spiritual abilities is to stop trying to fix your shadow and start letting it speak?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first time I realized this, I was in the middle of a breakdown that didn't feel spiritual at all. My life was unraveling. People I trusted were disappearing. I felt betrayed, abandoned, enraged. And in the middle of that chaos, something whispered, "Stay here." Not in a masochistic way, not in a victim loop, but in an invitation. It was like the shadow itself was saying, "You've spent your whole life trying to become light, but I am the part of you that holds the keys you've forgotten." And I listened. I stopped running. I sat in the grief. I let the rage move through me without shame. I let the betrayal crack me open. And that's when the first ability surfaced: pure energetic perception. I'm not talking about intuition in the way most people describe it. I'm talking about the ability to read the emotional, spiritual, and energetic blueprint of any room, person, or situation with terrifying clarity. It was like my nervous system had become a radar. I could feel suppressed emotions in others. I could sense lies, even when words sounded right. I could trace energy back to its origin point. But here's the twist. That ability didn't come from raising my vibration. It came from descending into the exact frequency I had feared most: abandonment. That trigger, that shadow wound I had tried to heal for years, was actually the activation point for one of my rarest gifts. And I began to wonder, what else had I been avoiding that was secretly waiting to unlock me? If you're a Dark Chosen One, your life hasn't been normal. You've probably been through trauma that doesn't make sense, synchronicities that feel too precise to be coincidence, and suffering that feels disproportionate to your age or actions. That's not random. That's initiation. You were born with a different spiritual architecture. Your soul didn't come here to play by the rules of comfort. It came here to remember power, the kind of power that can't be taught, only triggered. And the triggers, they hide in your shadow. Let me ask you something that most people never dare to explore. What emotion have you spent your entire life avoiding? Is it rage? Is it shame? Is it the feeling that no matter how much you achieve, you're still not enough? That emotion is not your enemy. That emotion is the guardian of your next ability. Because the shadow doesn't block your gifts, it protects them until you're ready. And readiness doesn't come from knowledge. It comes from courage. The courage to feel what you swore you'd never feel again. The second rare ability that awakens in Dark Chosen Ones is what I call dimensional memory. It's the sudden, undeniable awareness that you've been here before, not just in this life, but in countless timelines and realities. It's more than déjà vu. It's more than past life regression. It's a deep, cellular knowing that your soul has walked this earth in many forms, and that your current life is a convergence point for multidimensional karma. But here's the hidden key. That ability only activates when you face the wound of disconnection. You've probably felt it. That unbearable loneliness that no relationship, no achievement, no community can fill. It's not because you're broken. It's because your soul remembers being part of something vast, something cosmic. And being in a human body feels like exile. That ache you feel, it's not proof that you're lost. It's proof that you're remembering. And when you stop trying to numb that ache, when you allow yourself to fully grieve the cosmic homesickness, something opens. You begin to recall not just who you were but why you came. Your soul contracts resurface. Your ancient allies return. And your decisions begin to align with timelines far beyond this earth. That's when your dimensional memory comes online. And it changes everything. But again, it's not accessed through light. It's accessed through the shadow trigger of isolation. When you stop trying to be normal, when you embrace your otherness, when you stop apologizing for being different. That's when the channel clears. That's when the downloads happen in your dreams, in your meditations, in the strange synchronicities that no one else sees but you can't ignore. And that brings us to the third rare ability, one I rarely speak about, because it's the most dangerous and the most sacred. It's the ability to manipulate reality through resonance, not through force, not through law of attraction affirmations, but through becoming the exact frequency of the outcome you desire. It's subtle, it's quantum, and it only activates when you face the shadow trigger of powerlessness. That's the paradox. The ability to shape reality doesn't come from feeling powerful. It comes from embracing your powerlessness the moment you realize that everything you tried to control was never yours to begin with. When your ego finally breaks, when your identity crumbles, when you hit that wall where nothing works anymore, that's when resonance begins. Because you stop trying to force reality and instead, you become a match to it. You don't chase money, you become wealth. You don't chase love, you become love. You don't chase healing, you become medicine. And reality bends not because you demanded it, but because you aligned with it. So let me ask you this. What are you resisting feeling right now? What emotion, what memory, what belief are you still trying to fix, avoid, or bypass? That's your portal. That's your shadow trigger. And that's the gatekeeper to your next level of power. Why the shadow tests you before it trusts you? Most people misunderstand the shadow. They think it's their enemy, something to conquer, something to heal, something to purge. But for us, those of us who walk the path of the dark, chosen the shadow isn't trying to destroy us. It's trying to test us. And not in a cruel, punishing way. It's testing to see if we're ready to remember who we really are. The shadow doesn't give its gifts away for free. It watches. It waits. And when it senses that you've reached a certain threshold of honesty, of humility, of raw self-confrontation, it begins to unfold. Piece by piece, layer by layer. It trusts only those who are willing to meet it without flinching. When the shadow tests you, it won't show up in obvious ways. It won't come as some spiritual lesson wrapped in poetic insight. It'll come as betrayal, rejection, deep, unbearable loneliness. It'll come as patterns you swore you'd never repeat, emerging again and again like ghosts of a life you thought you'd outgrown. But these aren't punishments. These are mirrors, each one reflecting a part of you that hasn't yet been reclaimed. Because the shadow, your shadow, is not just pain. It's power. It's potential. It's the coded memory of every version of you that you've disowned. And until you turn toward it with love instead of fear, it will keep testing you. Here's something most people won't tell you. Your shadow already knows your true name. The version of you that exists beyond time, beyond trauma, beyond identity. But it won't speak that name until you prove you're ready to carry it. Until you're strong enough to remember without letting your ego hijack the power. That's why the tests come first, to soften you, to empty you, to humble you. Because you can't carry this level of power while still clinging to the illusion of control. Let's be real. How many times have you asked the universe for more power, more clarity, more gifts, but then rejected the very situations that were meant to awaken them? You asked to become a healer, and then your life fell apart so you could learn to transmute pain. You asked to understand love, and then your heart shattered so you could discover what love isn't. You asked for clarity, and everything became confusing so you'd stop relying on your mind and start listening to your soul. These are not punishments. These are initiations, designed by your own higher self, crafted with surgical precision to break every illusion that stands between you and your essence. This is why the rare abilities we spoke about, energetic perception, dimensional memory, and resonance-based creation, don't awaken in comfort. They awaken in chaos, in heartbreak, in loss. Because only when your false self dies can the real one emerge. The shadow knows this. And that's why it tests you, not to break you, but to reveal you. So when the darkness comes, when everything falls apart and nothing makes sense anymore, don't resist. Don't try to climb back into the light just because the shadow feels too heavy. Stay. Sit with it. Ask it what it's trying to show you. Because every time you pass one of these shadow tests, something ancient within you unlocks. A piece of your original blueprint reactivates. A dormant gift lights up. And here's the most powerful part. These gifts aren't given, they're remembered. They were always inside you. The shadow just needed to know if you were ready to hold them without misusing them. I think about it. Why would the universe give you the ability to manipulate energy, time, or reality itself if you're still driven by ego, reactivity, or fear? It wouldn't. It can't. Because that kind of power in the wrong hands becomes corruption. That's why the shadow holds the keys. It's not your enemy. It's your guardian. And it's guarding the most sacred parts of you. So let me ask you something that most people avoid. What have you been blaming your shadow for that was actually a gift in disguise? What pain have you been resisting that was actually a doorway? What tests have you failed, not because you weren't worthy, but because you weren't ready to be honest with yourself? This is where the wisdom lives, in the raw places, in the nights when you question everything, in the moments when you feel like giving up, because that's when the shadow is closest, watching, waiting, asking, will you meet me now or will you run again? And here's the truth most won't tell you. One day, you'll look back on your darkest moments with reverence. Not because they were easy, but because they were sacred. You'll see how each trigger, each collapse, each betrayal was perfectly designed to strip away everything you weren't so you could finally see what you are. So don't run from the test. Don't numb the ache. Don't bypass the breakdown. That's the fire. That's the forge. That's the point where shadow stops being a threat and starts becoming a teacher. How your pain becomes prophecy when you align with your shadow. There comes a moment when you stop asking the shadow to leave you alone and start asking it what it needs from you. This moment marks a spiritual pivot so subtle that most miss it. It's the moment your pain stops being a burden and begins to become a prophecy. Not a prediction, but a revelation of who you are becoming and what you were always meant to embody. You see, pain is not just a wound, it's a message. And for dark chosen ones, it's also a blueprint. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every exile you've endured, it all holds specific energetic data, encoded memory, and direction. You just weren't taught to read it. Most people are taught to escape their pain, to rise above it, to vibrate higher until the discomfort disappears. But what if the pain isn't there to be escaped? What if it's there to be translated? We were given emotional pain not as punishment, but as language. The language of the shadow. And once you learn how to listen to it, really listen, not with your trauma, not with your ego, but with your soul, pain begins to organize itself. Patterns emerge. Symbols repeat, and suddenly the chaos of your life begins to form constellations. You realize that the very thing you thought was breaking you was actually pointing you toward your most sacred purpose. Let me give you an example. Some of the most powerful, dark, chosen ones I've ever met, people with rare spiritual gifts, people who literally shape reality with their presence, were born into families that made them feel invisible, or worse, like they didn't belong. And for years they saw that as a curse. But when they finally aligned with the shadow of disconnection, when they stopped trying to earn love and started listening to the emptiness, something profound happened. They realized they weren't meant to belong in the old system. They were born to rewrite it. That loneliness wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Their exile was the cocoon that forced their transformation. And when they embraced that, their pain became prophecy. When you align with your shadow, you stop fighting your story. You stop trying to make your life look like someone else's spiritual blueprint. You realize that your exact wounds are not just obstacles, they are instructions. They are pointing to the specific medicine you came to bring into this world, not generic healing, not vague light work, but something precise, something cosmic, something ancient. And that precision can only be unlocked by going exactly where it hurts. But here's the challenge. Most people want to use their pain to justify their story, not rewrite it. They want to wear it like armor, or worse, like a crown. But pain was never meant to become identity. It was meant to become direction. Identity keeps you stuck. Direction sets you free. When you stop saying, "This happened to me," and start asking, "What is this trying to activate in me?" That's when the prophecy begins. One of the most sacred truths I've learned, and I share this with you not as a teacher, but as a brother who's walked through fire, is that your pain holds a sacred geometry. It's not random. It's rhythmic. It's intelligent. And when you stop resisting it, when you finally sit with it long enough for the illusions to burn away, you begin to see how every scar has been carved in the exact shape of your soul's mission. You begin to notice that the people who hurt you were playing roles in a script your higher self wrote. That the relationships that broke you were coded with spiritual contracts designed to awaken dormant powers. That the moments you thought would destroy you were actually the portals through which your highest gifts would arrive. This is the alchemy of alignment. This is when the shadow becomes your map. And here's where it goes deeper, because when your pain becomes prophecy, your presence begins to change the world. Not because you speak eloquently, not because you've mastered rituals or mantras, but because you've embodied truth. People feel it. They don't even know why, but they sense something in you, something real, something ancient, something unshakable. That's resonance. That's alignment. That's when your energy speaks louder than your words, and your life becomes the message. But this doesn't happen if you're still trying to control the narrative. It only happens when you surrender to the story, when you make peace with every chapter, even the ones that hurt, especially the ones that hurt, because those are the chapters that carry your keys. The parts of your life you're most ashamed of, they are the exact places your magic is buried. The things you never wanted anyone to know, that's where your gifts are waiting. So ask yourself, what if the part of you you've been hiding is the very part the world needs most? What if your mess is your ministry? What if the thing you thought disqualified you is the very thing that makes you qualified to lead? This is the prophecy, not one you predict, but one you become. It's written in your bones. It's encoded in your scars. And the more you stop resisting your pain, the more clearly you'll hear it. The final unlock, becoming the shadow and the light. There comes a point on the dark chosen one's path where you stop trying to escape duality and instead become the bridge between it. You stop seeing shadow and light as opposites and begin to embody both as necessary pulses of the same cosmic rhythm. This doesn't mean you become perfect, it means you become whole. And wholeness is what unlocks the final level of power. Not just the power to see, or to feel, or to shape reality, but the power to be reality. To hold paradox in your body without needing resolution. To walk as a living embodiment of both the wound and the medicine, the destroyer and the healer, the forgotten and the infinite. The final unlock is not a skill. It's not a technique. It's not something you can learn in a book or a course or even in a sacred ceremony. It's a state of being, a frequency. And here's the paradox: you can't reach it by effort. You reach it by releasing everything you thought you had to be. That includes your spiritual persona, your lightworker identity, your idea of what awakening is supposed to look like. Because all of those are still stories. Beautiful stories perhaps, but still stories. And the final unlock only happens when you become empty enough to let life move through you without resistance. This is why so many powerful beings never reach this stage. Because they become attached to their growth. They start measuring their worth by how awakened they seem. They become addicted to the idea of being someone who has transcended suffering, not realizing that suffering was never the problem. Resistance to suffering was. But when you stop resisting, when you stop needing to be anything other than what you are in the moment, angry, grieving, ecstatic, confused, that's when your frequency stabilizes. That's when the universe stops seeing you as a separate entity and starts moving through you as itself. At this level, you don't have to do anything to be powerful. You are the power. Your presence alone shifts timelines. Your silence can activate people more than 100 teachings. Your shadow no longer needs to be hidden, because it's not in conflict with your light, it is your light, inverted. You no longer need to explain yourself because you've become the answer to your own questions. You've stopped seeking truth and realized that you are truth wrapped in skin. And yes, people will project onto you. They will misunderstand you. They might even fear you. Because when you embody both shadow and light, you become a mirror too clear for most to look into. You remind them of what they've disowned in themselves. And that's okay. You didn't come here to be liked. You came here to become whole, and in doing so, to call others into their own wholeness, not by force, but by resonance. So let me ask you this one last time. Are you willing to stop being only the light? Are you willing to stop hiding the parts of you that still ache, still rage, still remember the pain? Are you willing to be seen fully, ferociously, vulnerably as everything you are? Because that's the final unlock, not transcendence, not enlightenment, wholeness. The willingness to be all of it. To stop performing for the world and start embodying the mystery. To walk with your shadow not as a burden, but as an ally. An ancient, sacred part of you that waited lifetimes for you to remember. And when you do, when you stop dividing yourself and start standing as the totality, you'll realize something breathtaking. The shadow was never trying to destroy you. It was trying to make you indestructible. You are not broken. You are becoming. Let them feel your wholeness. Let them see your shadow. Let them remember their own. And let the prophecy live through you.